So give a big, big, warm AGC welcome to our speaker tonight, Ann O'Connor!
Thank you all the AGC folks for making this happen tonight. I'm thrilled that you're here. If you're like most humans, belonging is one of the big three needs. There's dignity, there's safety, and there's belonging. Because the opposite of true community is loneliness. And well before the global pandemic, loneliness was at the top of the list for mental health care providers. About 61% of people in 2019 said that they were lonely. Clearly, the global pandemic has increased and exacerbated this problem. Beyond feeling terrible, being lonely is risky for our health. The National Institute on Aging tells us that prolonged social isolation is as risky as smoking almost an entire pack of cigarettes a day. We have more work than ever to do to create community. We're more mobile. We rearrange our families. We move across the country. We move across the globe. Through it all, stable and life-affirming relationships, they are the determinant of the quality of your life. I've been living in active communities since I was a young child in the suburbs of Chicago. I'll give you an example about community. I was about 7 years old, and I was laying in the snow, deep, fresh snow. I was alone. And I was watching these giant, gorgeous snowflakes come down from the sky and hit my face. And you might think, well, now, what does this have to do with community? We build community from within ourselves. When we feel well and we like ourselves, it's easier to like other people and to feel good about them. It's easier to manage the challenging parts of being human, this interaction, and so that we can get the rewards of laughing and creating and playing together. My child also had elements of what we more traditionally think of when we envision community. Family gatherings with siblings and cousins and aunts and uncles. We gathered in backyards and basements for barbecues and picnics. Like many families, mine experienced a fracture and a loss. After my parents divorced, everything changed. The gatherings stopped, and I moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, just 7 days before starting high school at an enormous high school where I knew no one. I struggled socially in high school, and I fell prey to the many risks associated with loneliness. I had to relearn how to create the kind of healthy, thriving community that I had experienced in moments of my childhood. But over the next few years, I regained my inner strength, my ability to savor important moments and to create them. Years later, I moved to a town of 4,300 people in rural Wisconsin. In that small place, I learned big lessons about how to get along with people. I learned to tolerate, and then to see them differently, and eventually to love people. People who are, by the way, very different from me and I would have nothing to do with living in a bigger place. When I left to return to the Twin Cities, my farewell party was a kaleidoscope of kids and old people and everybody in between. This place, like the Twin Cities, will always be one of my homes. My training experience allowed me to study how communities grow together or move apart. I've facilitated this work of community in many capacities, as a writer and journalist, as a business leader, as a coach and a therapist, as a mother, as a daughter, as a friend. What I'm sharing with you here today is based on all of that experience, of course, but it's also backed by evidence from researchers who spend their lives trying to figure out The perpetual question, why is it so difficult to make and keep friends? How you move through the world matters. In his book, A Hidden Wholeness, the brilliant mind and author Parker Palmer describes how your life is an exchange of your internal landscape and your external landscape. Yeah? Consider your internal landscape. That's where your heart resides. It's where your hopes, your dreams, your big ideas live. And it's where your identity, your family history, your culture, the ways that you see yourself. Also, yes, your internal landscape is where your resentments, your fears, your doubts, your irritations, they all live there. Your external landscape includes the people that you interact with, your home, your neighborhood, and your workplace, and the less tangible things like how society views you and how its systems support or thwart you. These two landscapes, the internal and the external, are interacting continuously. They play off each other, influence each other. There are skills we can learn to tip that interplay toward the healthy pro-social exchange. I'm going to give you 3 of those ways, and you can keep your internal landscape thriving, healthy, with the best chances of influencing your external landscape and improve your community building. All right, first, aim for psychological flexibility. Psychological flexibility is the idea, among other things, that you shouldn't believe everything you think. Psychological flexibility is being able to notice your thought in the moment. Psychological flexibility allows you to not take yourself so seriously. It's the skill of leaving space for not knowing and finding out what happens in that space. It's the ability to hear yourself saying, well, this is the way it is, and pausing just long enough to say, well, it could be that way, but it could be this way as well. Psychological flexibility allows you to interrogate your thoughts and question whether they are accurate or whether they're serving you. We're constantly making stuff up in our minds. When you can catch your mind and explore its reliability, you give yourself more options. So, your boss may be a complete power tripper who is out to ruin your life. It could be that. It could also be that she's acting out of fear. And that psychological flexibility in that thought may not change your circumstances, but it may change how you navigate those circumstances. And the way, and that change is one of the ways that we create power in our lives. When you have more power in your life, you're more likely to engage in community. You sabotage your chances for psychological flexibility when you dig into your position, and we all do this. You sabotage your community when you decide there is one right way to see things, when there is one right way to live. Psychological flexibility changes everything. And as a recovering know-it-all, I will just let you know that this kind of openness is really good for you, and it's really good for the people who are around you. The second skill, build your compassion. It can be tough to be aware of your thoughts without compassion, and it's nearly impossible to build a thriving community without compassion. Because people are difficult. Perhaps you're difficult. I certainly am difficult sometimes. So what? Learn to like people anyway. You probably already do this with your favorite people, right? There's not one person who you're going to like everything about them. Not your lover, not your mother, not even your kid. But you like them anyway because they're worth it. See if you can expand that allowance to strangers. Practice liking people anyway. We become compassionate when we practice compassion. Researcher Richard Davidson runs the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin. He's been studying compassion for 30 years by doing things like hooking people living as monks up to brain scanning equipment and testing them. These are monks who have meditated for like 50,000 hours over their lifetimes. Yeah? This makes them like the Serena Williams of meditation, right? Highly skilled, highly practiced. And the results are incredible. Practicing compassion and acceptance, sitting mostly alone. Yeah? These committed meditators have developed, perhaps unexpectedly, skills to combat loneliness and to become fluid and active community members. They're far less reactive than most of us. These folks have mastered the power of the pause, an underappreciated but powerful skill. The pause, well done, gives us time to have more options. The pause allows us to choose a compassionate response, a community building response. We sabotage compassion building when we react impulsively and say the first thing out of our mouth, first thing in our minds. To build our own compassion, meditate. Do something like it anyway. Get to know your internal landscape and do the necessary renovations, the updates. This allows you to influence your external community in the right direction. Do assume that people like you. Assume that you will like people. And go ahead and be emotive. Get gushy. When the time is right, tell people how you really feel. There's research evidence suggesting that people like you better when they think that you like them, right? So if you want friends, stop telling people how you like your dog better than most people. When compassion is part of the equation, the collective intelligence can be fully realized. So grow your compassion. The third skill is being able to ask for and receive support. Don't go it alone. Humans are pack animals. We're better together. This has been true evolutionarily, and it is still true today. And this is harder to do than it ever has been, right? People working from home, people are displaced, a whole generation of children with a huge disruption in their community life. We all need various kinds of support. Within organizations, another kind of isolation happens. The higher your position, the more isolated you become, the more difficult you become to approach. You hold a lot of power in your hands. I remember working with a CEO on a speech he would deliver to multiple audiences. And after the first audience, I gave him some notes. What would it be like if you said it like this? Do you think it would be more effective if you said it this way? And he just looked at me in disbelief and he said, nobody tells me what I do wrong. I always just say, great job. People in leadership positions typically are pretty isolated. It takes a lot to tell them something that will make them do better. Yeah, we think we know what they want to hear, and that's what we tell them. But he was grateful for the feedback, and he thanked me for it. But he paid me to do that, right? How can you make it safe for people to offer genuine support to you, even if there's a power differential, a race or a class, or ability difference? If you're in charge, it's up to you to ensure that you create a safe space, ways that people can tell you their reality. You would be wise to have a trusted coach or a confidant. A brave employee, no matter how brave, can only do so much. You hold their life in your hands in many ways. We sabotage our ability to ask for and receive help in some predictable ways, right? We declare like, oh, I'm not that kind of person, or I don't really do groups. Yeah. Oh yeah, I tried that, it didn't work. And we do that when, you're working on changing something for a week, and this is something that's been lasting like 30 years in your life, yeah? We sabotage getting support when we think it has to be perfect. But all of life is, after all, imperfect. And those same messy, imperfect people also come with our deepest joys, our most profound work. And some of them make a pretty awesome chocolate cake. Dive into your external community with support from a group or organization. Take a class, or get a coach, or read a book club book, or watch smart things with your favorite people, or join a grief group, or start a sewing circle that seconds as a peace posse. Find the ways to get together and hang out. I want to invite you to an exercise that will help you practice these skills right here and now. You will need psychological flexibility, you'll need your compassion, and it will be imperfect, but it might be beautiful. This is, of course, an activity that you can join by choice, not by pressure. So, you ready for this? Excellent. I would love for you to find a partner and look directly at them, so you're face to face. Now, I'm going to ask you to hold the silence until we're all the way through. Please go ahead and take a look into one another's eyes. Just quietly, without words, seek to understand this human in front of you. Know that someone loves this person. See if you can notice their beauty. Do you see a time when they might have been lonely? Do you see a way that they might be radiant? Just see them. Really experience them. And when you're ready, with a silent nod, thank them and come back to me. That, my friends, is one way to build connection, community. Yeah? Don't let fear or anything else stop you from getting this most essential skill and need for humans, true connection. No matter where you are, there is always a way to expand your heart, to be more fully alive, and to build your community from the inside out. Thank you.